Hello, everyone, and I am Tal Hoover with Blessed Grove Homeschooling. And today I'd like to come and just really briefly share a review with you that of a book that I have here from Evan-Moor, and it is called Skill Sharpener Science, and it is for grade 6. And I was very excited to receive this, and I wanted to give an honest review of what I think about this book. Okay, so it is aligned to current science standards, and it has vocabulary, experiments, comprehension, and it is meant to connect school and home. And of course, with me being a homeschooler, that's a plus for my family, okay? Connecting school and home because that is a way of life for us, okay? So it has a wonderful, well laid out table of contents section. So whatever I'm looking for, I can easily access. And like Unit 1 is organisms and ecosystems, and then it has each one of the things, each one of the skills that are taught broken down very well, inherited traits and concepts, chromosomes and DNA concepts, genetic variation and concepts, and so on. Okay, Unit 2 is climate and weather. And I've just briefly had a class on weather and climate, so I thought, wow, this just falls right in with basically what I've been covering with my own students. Okay, so Unit 2, weather and climate, what causes weather. So it breaks those concepts down really well. Regional climates, hurricanes, global climate. And then you move on to Unit 3 and Unit 4, um, tectonic plates and uh, energy, things like that. But I love how, and I did not let my kids write in this book, okay? So I basically just taught them directly from the book, okay? And I love how, or they wrote their answers on paper. So I love how it starts out talking about inherited traits, if you can see that, okay? Because with my kids, explaining to them genetics and DNA isn't always the easiest thing. So I thought this was very helpful. The heredity page was very helpful in explaining how we get traits from our mother and how we get certain things from our father. And it explained everything in a way that wasn't too difficult. And mind you, I'm using this book with my sixth grader, okay? But I also use this book with my ninth grader, my 11th grader, and with my senior at the time, okay? And two younger students. So this book kind of went across with several grade levels, and it was wonderful because I love the simplicity of how it explained genes and traits and things like that. Okay, and then of course reproduction. It's one of those things that can be a little bit touchy, but I loved how it just touched on it enough for the child to understand about different species and asexual reproduction, but it touched on it lightly, okay? And I love how it gave the definitions for offspring and things like that. If you can see that little box, okay? And then inherited and learned traits. So it kind of discussed some things that were genetic and then some things that were learned behaviors. And for my kids, it was very important that they could understand that there was a difference, because sometimes we think that things are inherited, but when we really think deeply, we realize, no, 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 that's something that the child might have learned from a family member or a friend, and that doesn't always mean something, necessarily bad. But it was important that they could actually use this book and see the difference between learned and inherited. Okay? And then I love the puzzle. My younger student, I think it was my third grader, I think the inherited trait puzzle was his favorite. Okay, because puzzles are new, but this one was very simple and it didn't add any more than what was already covered in the pages before. So that was important to me, that it stuck to the topic at hand, well laid out, and then it reinforced those vocabulary words and the definitions, but in puzzle format. Okay, and then we jumped over to the DNA part, the sequencing. That was something that for me I had somewhat of a little tough time explaining on my own, but I love the way that the book broke it down. So you can see the chromosomes, the chromosome and DNA. I love how let me just say that while I'm at it, how the sides of the pages are all labeled. And that made it easier for me to find what I needed, okay? Chromosomes, dominant and recessive genes. I love the graphics. I like that it's not too much information on one page. Let's see, we did do the DNA lab. Now this part was a favorite for my senior. She actually enjoyed the lab part, the sealing of the banana, the using the glasses, the bowl of ice, all of that, the coffee filter. And the thing is, the experiments given required the use of things that we already had at home. So I didn't have to go out and buy anything excessive. So you might like the experiments as much as I did. All right, it talks about genetic diversity, um, genetic variation, and it talks about height and hair color. So this for me, because for so long I had looked around to try to piecemeal different resources and worksheets and things like that together, and it just kind of wasn't working for me. So this was exactly what I needed. Um, and then we jump over to weather. What causes weather, precipitation, and wind? And look how clear and simple the graphics are. I really, really like that. And my boys, they definitely enjoyed this because they actually had a discussion in the middle of me reading the information to them. And I gave my oldest son the book, and he actually recreated this himself and labeled it because I didn't want them to write in the book. So he just kind of um, mimicked that and labeled it. And I really thought that that was showing that he was actually he was interested in what the book was presenting, and that his recall was a bit better than it had been in the past with other workbooks and things like that that we used. They loved the puzzle. They even, their favorite part was the egg in the bottle experiment. Okay, because we had tried that before and it just didn't work, but they liked having it right there and having that visual. And I love how simple it is, and I love the "What did you discover?" because this actually helped my children work together as a group, and it led to more group discussion than what they had been used to having in science. Okay, so that was very good for us to be able to do that. Patterns of daylight, landscape, and weather pattern. And then I loved how it had the North Pole versus the South Pole, because we did not know a lot about the North Pole and the South Pole. All we knew basically was at the North Pole was cold, and we didn't know anything else. And I loved the little comparison chart. So that was very, very helpful, even for me as an adult, to kind of understand a little bit about the differences between the two. Okay? And I like how after every few pages it gives a puzzle for the child to do. It gives an experiment for the child. And I mean, it talked about the greenhouse gas and things like that. Cartographers and geologists. So you can see in our changing planet, it has the little globe or the map, and that was really important. And I love how it reinforced different subjects, but while kind of staying on the same path. So it's the weather, and then it's the map, and then it's the puzzle. So this book, I will say, I really did like it. I've seen a lot of books before, um, and I was just, there were a few pages I liked. There were some that I didn't. Um, this book was just, it was excellent for us, and I highly recommend it. The Layers of Earth. So we had a great discussion on this. The kids loved it. They learned a lot. And flipping back a little bit, it gave them the information to read from, and then the earth itself. And then so they got to go and label their own. And then there was the vocabulary activity to fill in the blank. And we actually did some of that on the board with them, and they really loved it. Um, Hands-on activities, unclear boundaries, splitting consonants, energy. My boys loved the kinetic energy study because they learned more about kinetic energy from a movie that we watched not too long ago. So this came at the right time. And so it led to them having a discussion about roller coasters and, you know, um, different rides that you would find at amusement parks, which they love. Thermal energy, heat, electricity. So it even taught them about like the electric bill, and that led to them wanting to compare our electric bills month by month. See, and this was really nice for me because this is something that most books leave out. It doesn't cover a life skill. And for me, this was a life skill. So my boys then went out and tried to read our electric meter. So I think this was my favorite part of this book overall because I love crossing life skills into um, our education studies. So for me, I love this book, and it has the answer key in the back, nothing separate. Um, the only thing that I would love to see in a book like this are more life skills like the electric bill page. That was my favorite, but I would love to see more of it covered in either this book or more of their books to come. So if you're looking for something like this, I highly recommend the Skill Sharpener Grade 6 Science Workbook from Evan-Moor. Thanks. Post questions in the comments if you have them. Bye.